Here we're going to deal with a table of a quadratic function, and we're going to work with writing the explicit and recursive functions from that table. So if the outputs are 1, 2, 5, 10, 17, I'm going to start with the explicit. So we know it's a quadratic, so we know it's going to have this form. And it's going to be plus c, and c is where x equals 0 and then y equals 1. So we know it's plus 1. And then we're just going to make a system of equations to try to solve it. So I plug in 2 for y and 1 for x. And then I try, that was with these points, and then I'll plug in these ones. And I'm going to use these two as a system to try to solve. So I'm going to keep this one as it is, and then I'm going to multiply that top one by 2. And I'm going to subtract these. A equals 1, and then if I plug that back into one of these equations, I see that 2 equals 1 plus b plus 1, so b must equal 0. So I know that the equation must be y equals a is 1, so x squared, and then b is 0, so that cancels. So that's the explicit equation for this graph. And then I want to write the recursive. For this same function. We're trying to find a relationship between these values. So if we know that we have to start with our starting point, so I know that f of 0 equals 1. And then we want to try to figure out what's happening to the other ones. So we're just going to see that when I have f of 1, I'm taking f of 0, which is 1, I'm adding 1 to it. And then for f of 2, I'm taking f of 1, and I'm adding 3 to it. F of 3, I'm taking f of 2, adding 5 to it. So these are the terms that I'm concerned about. So when I look at this and I try to find the pattern, I can see that when we look at this term and this term, so these numbers and these, a relationship is that if I multiply the n here, this n, if I multiply it by 2 and then subtract 1, I get this value. 1 times 2 is 2, minus 1 is 1, 2 times 2 is 4, minus 1 is 3. So using that, I can write a function saying that f of n will equal, so then we have this part, which is f of n minus 1, and then I know that I want to add 2n minus 1 to it, because that's what we determined that this value would be. So then this would be our recursive function.